I'm Tina McElroy-Ansa, and I'm one of the two old chicks who know a lot of shit. Welcome to our podcast. I'm here with my co-host and my friend, Wanda Lloyd, my friend since my freshman year at Spelman College. And how you doing, Wanda? As a matter of fact, Wanda, I told somebody today I had to explain that someone laughed because someone's grandma was born in the 70s. I said, you and I were graduating from college.
I know, that's right, isn't it? Hey, Tina, I'm fine. I'm just excited and, kind of overwhelmed with all this stuff we're going to be sharing today on Two Old Chicks, but you sound less excited tonight. Have you spent too much time in the garden today?
Did I spend time?
Too much time.
What, do I sound tired?
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. I overdid it in the garden. How did you know that?
I can tell.
Absolutely. Well, what I'm doing is I was rewriting a book review, but I get my process is going out in the garden and, doing. And I looked up and it was almost time to come in and do our podcast. So yeah, I'm not droopy, but I am a little tired. But it's good. It's good time.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day to be able to move your body is a blessing, and I don't want our viewers to get to be in their 70s before they appreciate that. Just to get out and move your body just makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we got a lot of good stuff to share with our audience today. We have another great guest, someone who we've been working with since 2020. We worked on our collection Meeting at the Table, African-American Women Write on Race, Culture, and Community. And she was one of our essayists, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But it seems that we just keep coming back to Meeting at the Table. How long?
It sure does. We sure does. Yeah.
But it doesn't get old for us because our contributors are still writing and still creating. We met some people some writers that we admired and didn't know before, and we have some who are building their careers and some of their mentees. Mm-hmm. And one of them is someone we met at Meeting at the Table Journey.
That's right. And I'm so excited about our guests in our main segment today. But first, let's get into the first segment. Now, Tina and I decided to start today's podcast by launching a new segment because we have been telling y'all that we got some new stuff coming in 2020. And so this is one of them. And this one we call Book Shout Out. As writers, as journalists, as people who care about words, Tina and I are passionate about reading books by other authors. So this new segment is just as important to us as some of the books we've worked on ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you get started, Wanda?
I will. My book shout out is a book called Black, White, and the Gray. And I have it on my screen here. The rest of the title is the story of an unexpected friendship and a beloved restaurant by Mashama Bailey and John Omar Sano. This book was published in 2020, the same year my memoir was published and Meeting at the Table was published. So we were all sort of coming out together, and it's based in Savannah of all things. But I'm just getting around to reading it. In fact, Tina, that I'm an Audible reader. I like to listen to my books because I'm always walking my dog and, moving around. So I like to listen.
Excuse me, and in the garden.
And I spent a lot of time in the garden today myself, Tina. I want you to know.
I know.
Yeah, so, that's a good time. And I was listening to this book this morning. The two authors were from New York. They had lived in New York a long time, and they are now living in Savannah. And they opened a new restaurant a few years ago called The Gray. And The Gray is located, they bought the old Greyhound bus station, and they renovated it into a fine dining restaurant. And it was in an area that was kind of, in disrepair, the whole neighborhood. It's in the historic district, but the revival of Savannah had not quite gotten to that part of the historic district. So they really have helped to revitalize that community. But so she's African-American and he is Italian. comes from an Italian heritage. But the book is not just about the restaurant. The book really is largely about the relationship between this white man and this African-American woman from New York, and how they are building their relationship and how they are building the trust, which they didn't necessarily have at the beginning of their getting to know each other. So I'm just finding it a fascinating book. It's got the flavor of the book is so much about race and culture and food. And but it's also about those who've lived, visited. It's interesting for those who've lived in or visited or just interested in Savannah. There's so much familiarity in the city. And in fact, I'm learning some things I didn't even know about Savannah. So I highly recommend this book. And I'm hoping to meet them. I met John when the restaurant first opened. I just, went in and he was standing at the door and I said hello. But I'm hoping to meet them on a different level, because I really want to have a conversation about some of the things that they're doing in Savannah with the restaurant. So that's my shout. That's my first book shout out.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I have to say, one of the things you didn't say, that it is a very fine restaurant, and it's hard to get reservations there and all.
Very hard.
You and I are going to have to treat ourselves at some point and plan a trip there. That sounds good.
And can I say one more thing? From the few times I've visited the restaurant, they have restored. You can go in there and see what used to be the white waiting room, restroom, and the colored literally restroom, and the white entrance and the black entrance. And they have signs denoting that, and they have pictures of the areas that were all black and all white in the past. So it really is a kind of a walk down history just to go to the restaurant. Yeah.
It's becoming, the South is so hot right now. I keep saying that, but it's true. Actually, and in interest, that people are finding out all these fascinating things that have been literally buried sometimes. Like you said, when you said the Greyhound bus station, I immediately pictured the Greyhound bus station in Macon, Georgia. Yeah. And so, it is quite iconic, isn't it? Especially for Black people.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think that was fascinating. I am going to. I don't listen to books, but I think I may read that one, Wanda. I'll put it on my list. Well, my books, I have two books, and both of them are new books, and they are based in either real events or real people. And the first one, I love so much, is Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. It's just coming out. Well, Dolan is a friend of ours and a friend of Meeting at the Table. We were talking about folks who we keep coming back to. Dolan is one of those people. I reviewed the book for the Washington Post, and it was really my honor to, because this is a book that's set in real life. It's set in Montgomery, 1973. Right at the end of sort of the real civil rights movement. And it's a real live case. It was a real case, a groundbreaking case on prosecution of the HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare, what it used to be, for being responsible for the surgical sterilization of thousands of poor and especially Black women. And this was up until 1973. It was right after the discovery, a year after the discovery of the Tuskegee
experiment.
Yes. Right. And so this is set in real life. And Dolan is a professor at the American University. She lives in Washington. She has 2 kids, but she also is a special a special friend of ours, because she contributed to Meeting at the Table as well. We just keep coming back to it.
I know, right?
It's really a wonderful novel that really puts you right there. The main character is a young 23-year-old new nurse named Sybil, who discovers that her wards, her patients, have been surgically sterilized, and they're 11 and 13. So everybody knows the facts of the case. What she does is goes back and puts the people in the case. My second one is by Piper Hughley, and it is called by her own design. This is one that's also set in real life because it's about the designer Ann Lowe, which many young people may not know. But as you may remember, she's the Black designer who designed Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress when she married JFK. She was a famous fashion designer back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, a Black woman, and so few people know about it. And this is a novelization about her life. Now, I didn't get to read this whole thing, but I opened it. It's in galley form, but I opened it just in the middle, and I've read a whole chapter before I could stop myself. It's really good.
Oh, wow.
Really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. For those who don't know, and a lot of people don't, a galley is a sample book that publishers put out before the real book comes out. Sometimes it's paperback. Yeah, I like that one. And it's something that people like Tina and I who do reviews from time to time can read before it has time to go through the press and the hardback comes out and all that. So that's what.
But especially for booksellers, so booksellers can know what's coming out and they can really push it. Yeah. Because a hand sold book, you can't beat that.
Yeah,
you can't beat
So Dolan's book came out on April 12th, and I tuned in on one of the IG lives listening to her talk about her book. So I was there on the first day, helping her celebrate the launch of her book. So we're real proud of her and of Piper as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm grateful. I'm happy to be able to talk about it. When I'm reviewing a book, I don't talk about it until it's in the hands of the reviewer. But sometimes, it's like holding in a cork, just ready to pop. So I was ready to tell Dolan how much I loved your book.
Good. Well, I'm going to jump into that one after I finish Black, White, and the Gray. So for our podcast viewers, if you have a favorite book that you just read or is next on your reading list, we want you to give it a shout out and tag us at Chicksole on Twitter and 20 Chicks Podcast on IG. We want to keep this discussion going, and we'll respond. If you tag us, we're going to give you a response on one of those platforms. So please do tag us. Thank you. Well, I am so happy and excited to introduce our guest and this segment, which I'm calling Black Girl Magic, the Honorable Justice. Because it took a lot of Black girl magic to make this happen. There were thousands of Black women and others who tweeted and published statements and just flooded email with support for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. And no one was busier than our own next guest. Please welcome our fellow meeting at the table essayist, our friend, our mentee, Njeri Mathis Rutledge. Welcome to 20 Chicks, Njeri.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Well, we're proud to have you. I tell you, I was telling someone earlier who our guest was, and she was like, whoa, that's a really high guest. You are. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
It's my pleasure. I view both of you as wonderful mentors. I'm so grateful to you both.
Good. Well, you've become an influencer, and you're a Harvard Law classmate of Judge Jackson, soon to be Justice Jackson. Our guest is a prolific speaker, a writer, a law professor, legal expert, and our Spelman College little sister. So we're just so happy to have you here. So we want to have a conversation about a few things today. Tina, you want to get us started on the discussion?
Well, I sure will, but we want to hear from you. First of all, is your excitement about our new soon-to-be Justice Brown. Okay, yeah. This is a good question. How do we refer to her? Does she prefer Justice Brown Jackson, or does she prefer Justice Jackson?
She was always Judge Jackson before, so I'm sure she'll be fine with Justice Jackson.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about, maybe some behind the scenes of the excitement you and your sister lawyers were just pushing for. What was that like? What was the excitement like?
It's been very exciting. It's been just a big adrenaline push, right? To know that a Black woman was going to be nominated to the Supreme Court. And we kept hearing rumors about, okay, there's a short list. And of course, I was really pushing and hoping for Ketanji, but everyone on the short list was wonderful. And that was one great thing about the process. It showed how many well-qualified, competent Black women in the law were available to be considered for the Supreme Court.
Right. Yeah.
But I was so happy that they landed on Judge Jackson, and I was just on cloud nine. And I just knew that it was important to try to surround her with love and support and make sure people knew the truth about who she was. But I tell you, it wasn't until I got into the Senate confirmation hearings the first day that it actually hit me, and I started tearing up and crying. Because that's when it became real. Before, you know, it's like, okay, let's push, let's go, let's pray.
I know.
And now it's like, yeah, it was real and it was beautiful.
Well, tell me, how do you know Judge Jackson?
So I attended Harvard Law School after Spelman College in the class of 1996, entered in 1993.
You cannot have a better education than Spelman College and Harvard Law. Let me just put that out there right now.
Those are pretty good credentials right there.
That's right. That's right.
I fully believe the best part of my education was Spelman College, but I'm very proud graduate of Harvard Law School as well. So they had an admitted student weekend, and a really nice friend, Antoinette, I think her last name is Coakley, she invited me to stay with her. Antoinette, Nina, and Lisa are all of the ladies, her best friends, Ketanji's best friends. So I'm assuming that's where I met Ketanji, but I'm not positive. I used to say, you know, if I had any idea that this short, sweet person from Miami, Florida was going to be the next Supreme Court justice, I would have burned it in my mind. So I don't remember when, but I had the privilege of being in the same small section with her for law school. I was in the same dormitory with her. We're in the Black Law Students Association. And as her family's from Miami, Florida, I remember her coming by my grandmother's house, who lived in Liberty City in Miami, Florida, right before final exams. So I have some good memories just kind of here and there.
Yeah. How interesting, you know, all those intersects, it's all those bouncing off.
Yeah, and one of the things that you, I don't know, tweeted or put on social media was this photograph standing behind the chair where she was going to be sitting. I don't know if it was before or after the first day that she sat there, but you prayed over it. Tell us about that, and how did that just sort of come to you, and how did that come about?
You know, it was a very emotional time. I was so blessed because I flew down, and that was my birthday. So I flew down to DC, and it was my birthday, and I was hoping to get a hearing ticket, and we didn't know. And at the last minute, tickets became available. So I went down there, and the first thing I hear is a Senator Blackburn from Tennessee just make ridiculous comments and ask what her hidden agenda was. And I was like, oh boy. But then after all that nonsense, I got to hear Lisa Fairfax, who is a friend, Harvard Law School graduate, who's a professor now, introduced Judge Jackson. And I saw Judge Jackson raise her right hand and speak. And it was such an emotional time. And so after it was over and people started leaving, I wanted to talk to my classmates. I wanted to talk to Lisa and Roger and Nina and Antoinette. They were all there, but they got good seats. They were, because they're in her close inner circle. So I had to see them pass the guard and hug them. And eventually, when more people left, the guard let me come inside the well. And I looked over and I saw her name tag, and I started to get emotional again. I'm like, oh my God. And all I could think of was pray over it. Pray over her chair, because she's going to be under so much attack, and there's so much ugliness coming her way. And I just want her to feel, even though I couldn't hug her like I wanted to, I wanted her to feel the hugs. I wanted her to feel the love and support, not just of myself and other Black women, but of the ancestors. There's so many people rooting for her. And sometimes you don't feel that when people are saying ridiculous things to you and trying to attack your character.
That is powerful. That is so powerful. So we're just glad that you prayed, because clearly she needed those prayers, because that was before.
Can I point out something else about Njeri and our new Supreme Court justice? You know, they were both, if I'm not mistaken, both public prosecutors. Am I right, Njeri?
Not quite. We both have a career in public service. I was a prosecuting attorney. Ketanji was a federal public defender. In fact, she's the only federal public defender in the history, 233-year history on the Supreme Court. So she did defense work and I did prosecution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew that there was a connection there. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
but
it
both
will make a difference.
But both still relatively rare for Black women, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to look forward a little bit to what we think her impact will be. And I'm sure you are aware of some of the big cases coming up in the fall, when she'll probably take the bench in what, June or July?
She'll probably be sworn in June, July. The docket starts, I think, October 2nd or something.
Yeah. So what are some of the cases that she will face in her first year or first term on the bench?
So one of the biggest cases will be the affirmative action case, the Harvard Fellows. Although she's recused herself from that case because she's on that board, it comes with a companion case. And she will be allowed to weigh in on that companion case if she chooses to. That's going to be an interesting case deciding affirmative action. As you know, we have a conservative supermajority. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. The most highly anticipated case will be the Dobbs case, which is the abortion case. They held oral arguments on that case in December. And so she won't have an opportunity to weigh in on that, but most legal pundits and scholars are anticipating that will probably be the end of Roe v. Wade. So that is going to be the biggest, most consequential case coming down the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah. Can I ask you something also? Just overall, Njeri, how do you see an effect? What effect do you see Judge Jackson having on this court? I know you just said, the supermajority. We know what we're facing here, but just having a Black woman at the table, so
Absolutely.
to speak. Do you think that there will be an impact?
I do think there will be an impact. I think there's value of having someone in the room where it happens. I think as a consensus builder who has a wonderful personality, even the Republicans had to admit, well, you really are a nice person, right? But I'm not voting for you. Even with that, she really is one of the reasons I pushed so hard to shine a spotlight on her is because I remember her finally as being so sweet and genuine. And she really is that person. If you know her, you will like her. So I think she's going to be likable. She's not going to rub people the wrong way. And with that is influence. Because the thing about appellate courts is judges usually get together in a room and they talk about the cases and the law. So to be in the room, she's going to have an impact. Even though she's known as a consensus builder, we do have a supermajority. But we've seen before where I think it was Justice O'Connor said that Thurgood Marshall really impacted her and her thinking. So I think she's going to have an impact. What we all readily acknowledge is she's going to write some wonderful dissenting opinions. We anticipate that she's going to be just like her mentor, Justice Stephen Breyer, who she's replacing. So if the numbers aren't going to shift, the ideological balance isn't going to shift, but her presence as a Black woman, as a working mother, as a former public defender, as who she is and brings to that table, I do believe it's going to have an impact. How big of an impact when it comes to these big hot button issues, that's too soon to tell.
Yeah, it's not unlike any other career or industry where having someone different at the table, giving them a seat at the table and having that voice, it really transcends any occupation. And so I'm just happy that we now have a seat at that table, because we talk about meeting at the table all the time. And so now we have a whole nother table that has that voice and that, and will have that impact. How much do dissenting, you and others have talked about the writing of dissenting opinions. How much does that matter? Why does that matter?
Dissenting opinions matter. I'm sorry, the guinea pig is squirreling. Dissenting opinions matter because sometimes in the law, they become the majority opinion. If you think about sometimes where the Supreme Court was on the wrong side of history, Dred Scott, Plessy v. Ferguson, right? It was really important that some judges stood up and spoke for what was right. And so that also gives an opportunity for other law professors of all colors and races, including Black female law professors, to talk about and elevate those dissenting opinions and talk about changes in the law. Sometimes when the Supreme Court comes out with a decision that the public doesn't really care for, Congress can intervene. So there's a lot of value in dissenting opinions. We studied dissenting opinions in law school.
Oh, good. Well, that clarifies it, because I've been hearing about, how her opinions will matter, but that really clarifies it for me. So thank you.
And they always talk about how brilliantly some dissensions are written. I'm always interested in that. Wanda, I know we're maybe running out of time, but we can't go without y'all telling the story of how you met.
Yeah.
Two of you.
So we must talk about this, Njeri. So I got an email from this woman named Njeri Rutledge saying she was a Spelman graduate and she wanted to learn how to write. She wanted to write opinion pieces for news organizations, and that she was wanted some tips, and would I take the time to have a phone conversation or a Zoom session with her? And of course I said yes. The magic word is Spelman College.
Don't tell anybody, Wanda.
I don't think I've ever turned down someone who said, that they went to Spelman. And so I think our first conversation was a Zoom conversation, right?
No, it was a phone conversation.
Okay.
And I remember because I almost hurt my wrist. You were dropping so much amazing knowledge. I had pages and pages of pages.
Aww.
I couldn't write fast enough. And I was so overwhelmed because you said, of course, I said yes. There are so many people who would have ignored that email. So I am so very grateful to you.
Well, I am too.
Made the difference.
And then after you, I guess you shared the first one I saw, opinion piece that you had crafted, and you it wasn't published yet. And then I gave you all those tips and you reworked it. And then we did get on Zoom at some point, and we shared it on the screen, and we massaged it, and it was published was that the first one in USA?
That was the first, USA Today, the same USA Today who's turned me down.
Njeri, next thing we know, you being published in USA Today, you being published in the Hill. Well, we talked about you,
all
girl.
over the place.
All she needed was that spark and that information. Oh yeah, you're one of the people we brag about, Njeri.
We do. We talk about you all the time. Yeah, but here's the thing. She really got a few pieces published, and the next thing I know, she's on the USA Today board of contributors for my old newspaper, USA Today. So I was just so proud of you for that accomplishment. But you're all over the place now. You're on podcasts and television and MSNBC.
Excuse me, the Joy Reid show, all of them. Yeah.
So then the other thing I must share with our podcast listeners is I mentioned to her that Tina and I were working on this collective meeting at the table, and that we were collecting essays, and I explained what it was about. And I don't remember if I asked or you asked, but the next thing I knew, Njeri was writing an essay for meeting at the table.
I hinted. I was hoping for an invitation, and I did get one. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, we're so glad that you accepted our invitation. And then I had the pleasure of Tina and I split up the editing duties among our essayists, and I had the pleasure of editing your essay. So we're just so happy that your essay is in the book that we all share. So thank you so much. This has been it's been such a delight having you on Two Old Chicks.
Absolutely.
We appreciate the time you took, because I am sure you just we'll be inviting you to come back, because we really only scratched the surface of your knowledge. You know so much about so much. And so we could, we'll be, at some point we'll be talking about meeting at the table again also. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
much
for having me.
Njeri. We may be calling you for tips soon.
That's right.
I cannot imagine. I'm so grateful to you both. Love you both. Thank you.
Okay.
Love you. Whew. Well,
all right.
We have another segment that we introduced a while back. It's called If We Could Ask the Ancestors, but we asked them. And y'all know how we are about the elders, about the spirits, about the guys. You know how I am about that. And Wanda is all about respecting the ones who came before us, who showed us. It's a cliche, but I can't help but say it. Who showed us we stand on, because that's truly what we do. And we figured God, didn't make me Black for nothing. So, I know these prayers, and I've been surrounded by, deep praying women, Black praying women. So at any rate, Wanda and I talk about this all the time, and we decided to ask some of our friends and our mentees and folks that we know and folks that we admire the same question. What would you ask the ancestors?
Yeah. And our fellow self-described old chick, our Spelman College former sister president, Janetta B. Cole, left us with this gem when we asked her to share what she would ask about the elders, about the ancestors.
If I had the privilege and the joy of asking something of one of our amazing and grace-filled ancestors, here is what I would ask of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. We all know her. I would ask of this great Shiro to help me better understand and live out these words that she left us. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune said this: if we have the courage and tenacity of our forebearers, who stood firmly like a rock against the lash of slavery, we shall find a way to do for our day what they did for theirs. The message seems so clear, and yet I always need to have it reinforced. The struggle continues. Let us learn from the past as we move forward into the future.
The struggle continues. Let us learn from the past as we move forward into the future. It's appropriate in so many ways these days, Tina, and it really played out in the court confirmation that we just talked about, the process with Judge Jackson, don't you think?
The struggle continues, to hear Janetta Cole say that makes it very, very deep, because she's been in the struggle a long time, and the struggle continues as we saw played out, in the Senate. But as Joe Lewis said, it was a hard fight, but I'm glad I won.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's pretty much what I remember about that. You're
Right.
correct.
Yeah. Well, Tina, before we close, I want to share that I had an interesting meeting. I met Marcus Arbery, the father of Ahmaud Arbery, who was, brutally killed in Brunswick. Mr. Arbery and a number of his family members came to Savannah recently for the opening of a photo exhibit at Savannah State University. Some of the students went from Savannah to Brunswick to take photographs during the 100 Pastors March, I think it was called. And
that was I think that was during the trial, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was during the trial. Yeah, it was actually it was because Jesse Jackson showed up in the trial, and the defense lawyer, one of the defense lawyers, asked him to leave, or asked the judge to have him leave. And I don't remember how that turned out, but all I know is the next thing next thing I noticed, 100 pastors are descending on Brunswick, and they're marching through the street.
I guess the lesson here is don't.
I know that's right. Yeah,
nothing, right?
Don't mess with your Black pastors. So I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Arbery when he came to the opening of the exhibit. He and several family members. He drove up on a church bus. He drove the bus himself, I'm told.
Did he? Oh my.
Yeah, and so I didn't know he was going to be there. A friend who's a professor in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communications asked me to come to the opening just because it was something I might enjoy, and I did. And there's Mr. Arbery coming in, and he spoke during the program. He had a role on the program, and he spoke so so eloquently and sadly about, what all had taken place. But after the program, I was able to get close enough to him to hand him a copy of Meeting at the Table, our book, and take a picture with him and just tell him that we actually started this book because of the death of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and so many others who had died.
Especially Ahmaud Arbery, I think because it was so close physically, geographically.
Right here in Georgia,
right
absolutely.
down the road from both of us, that it felt more personal. Yeah.
So we have books that are signed, pre-signed by both of us. And so I was able to give him a personalized signed copy. And I asked him especially to share it with some of the young people in his family, because I think they should read some of the essays. So that was kind of a thrill. So,
yeah, I saw it on social media before I knew that you had gotten the chance to meet him and share a book. I appreciate that so much. Yeah. As a matter of fact, since we're talking about the books, we certainly still have books for sale. The book is an urgent book. It was published in 2020, but it's still so very valuable. We hope it will be valid, for the ages. And you can purchase the book at downsouthpress.com. That's downsouthpress.com, and it's also an ebook you can get on Amazon. Yeah. So we do appreciate your support.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode of Two Old Chicks. We want to thank you for joining us. Don't forget to tag us on social media and tell us what you are reading these days. That's at Chicks Old on Twitter, and we're at Two Old Chicks Podcast on IG, Instagram. We enjoy your comments so much, so please continue to send us feedback on social media.
We do enjoy the comments. We feel like we're in conversation with you, when you tweet us and give us comments. Also, we're still trying to expand our audience. We're two old chicks who do know a lot of shit, and we want to be able to, help other folks, guide other folks if we can with our knowledge. So be sure to follow us, Two Old Chicks, on Spotify and YouTube. Well, I think that's it, Wanda. Until next time, keep reading, take good care, love and peace.
Bye-bye, everybody. Love.